food, hunger, bhook is something every single person can identify with the emotion. To my Bengali husband, there's no such thing as Maharashtrian cuisine. It doesn't exist. There's nothing called vegetarian. I sort of dance a jig and I say, oh wow, what a voice. It really hurt my vanity because I was nowhere close to that age or stage. I think being vulnerable is an attractive quality. It's like saying that when you dip your feet into the river, neither the river remains the same nor do you. 12 months, 365 days, 75 years, and approximately 400 pages to pack it all in. But madam, there are no recipes in it. It starts with a quote from Sophia Loren, another woman I deeply admire. There is a fountain of youth. It is your mind, your talents, the creativity you bring to your life and the lives of people you love. When you learn to tap this source, you will truly have defeated age. It's been 11 years since the artist M.F. Hussain passed away in London. It's his death anniversary today. Raisa, his beautiful daughter, who's looking more and more like him as she grows older, sends me 2 wonderful photographs of her beloved Baba and me. Raisa, along with her younger brother Owais, are the custodians of Hussain Saab's legacy and estate. It is a huge responsibility. But Raisa, who is as soft-spoken as her father, discharges it with grace and dignity. The world of international art has dramatically changed, with cryptocurrency and NFTs altering the broader implications of worth and value in the mysterious world of art. Anandita gives the family a set of cute teas with an Andy Warhol-style image of Hussain Saab on it. Quirky and fun. Would the man who was always so ahead of the curve have approved? I often think of Hussain Saab these days. Perhaps it has something to do with the weather and adrak chai. He was an erratic and frequent visitor to our home during the monsoons, turning up unexpectedly to my absolute delight, generally around 5 p.m. and demanding, "Where's my tea?" I rarely saw Hussain Saab eat a full meal, even though he had a fussy, fastidious palate and was a superlative cook. Consuming food made him restless, impatient, like the act of sitting at a table, chatting companionably and taking the trouble to let the hand travel from the plate to the mouth was already a waste of time. Instead of a fork or spoon, the hand could so easily have held a paintbrush. Often he would stop eating mid-meal and pull out black felt pen, his mind hungrier than his stomach and his fingers itching to draw. I've spent many afternoons with him at assorted coffee shops when he has left his meal untouched and started drawing on paper napkins, table mats, tablecloths, serviettes. He would do this casually, effortlessly, easily, like he was doodling in an absent-minded way. But the lines were faultless, ceaseless, sure, and unerring as he continued chatting, his fingers moving steadily over the surface of whichever material he could find at that moment. Waiters, managers, restaurant guests would watch in wonder and marvel, awestruck by his genius. He'd look up and do one of 2 things. If he was in a generous mood, he would give the drawing to whoever was at the table. At other times, he'd carefully fold the paper napkin and place it back in his jacket pocket. Across the world, there are hundreds of lucky recipients who own a bit of Hussain just because they happened to be at his table or in his vicinity when he was drawing. Hussain Saab could and did draw anywhere, sitting at a roadside dhaba or in an airport lounge, His mind and hands were perpetually at work on images that seemed to burst out of his lithe being. Even in his 80s, Hussain Saab was a very attractive man, and he knew it. I have seen women and men drooling over him and craving his attention. His personality was his best artwork.
Just in case you have been living under a rock for the last 40 or 50 years, you might need to be introduced to Shobhaa De. But I'd like to just point out that there are possibly some things that you don't know. For instance, Shobhaa De is the inspiration for two very different writers. I remember we were in the other hotel, that side, which we can't name here. In that hotel, Amitav Ghosh launched his book and talked about Shobhaa being one of the inspirations behind the way he created dialogue in Sea of Poppies. And in Insatiable, Shobhaa records that she was talking to Salman Rushdie, who enjoyed her writing as well. So if you felt any faint traces that Shobhaa is not part of the canonical works, okay, you can put that aside now. In my own small way, I've always enjoyed meeting, talking to, bumping into Shobhaa De. One, because of those cheekbones. I mean, it's just nice. I mean, someone walks in who looks really nice and you just start talking. And then eventually in 30 seconds, Shobhaa and I become risque and begin to exchange strange comments. We've never talked, I think, about food, actually. And I have no idea why not. But this book, Insatiable, is supposed to be about food. Now, as anyone will tell you, unless you're one of those hardcore writers about food who wants to talk about mouthfeel and umami, food is actually a metaphor for talking about the world. Food is a way into intimacy. Food is a way into space. Food is a way into culture. Food is a way into family. And this book, therefore, doesn't just talk about food. It uses food as a platform from which the poised and elegant Shobhaa De skydives into her world.
Thanks. Thank you, Jerry. Always a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much, Tata Lit Live, Amy, all of you. Great honor to be kicking off the digital series and in this magnificent golden room. We're all aglow with excitement and much more. So the book, Jerry, to get back to what we are here to discuss, amusingly enough, when the title was announced and the book was out and there were people reading it and there were reviews, a lot of people did call me up and say, "But madam, there are no recipes in it." And I said, "It's not a food book. I'm not strictly a food writer. I wish I were that, but it's not my special skill set." So madam, if it's not about food, but you're saying you're hungry, then you're hungry for what? So I said, well, the title sort of says it. It's Insatiable Hunger for Life. Oh, Insatiable. Oh, so Insatiable, okay, not about food, no recipes. But madam, there is still food in the book, no? So, it's wonderful to get a whole lot of expectations. It's also wonderful to receive comments which are unlikely, which kind of throw you. So when I did launch it across cities, I did specify that, I'm sorry, because of our old banter, I slip into that role very easily, but you'll forgive me. I did say, "Excuse please, but recipes nahi hai isme." But if you still want to read it, please do, because food is, as we discussed, it's a metaphor for much more. It's something that I find is underrated in our lives. We don't give it enough importance. It is something that's very primal. And food, hunger, bhook, is something every single person can identify with the emotion of hunger. And for me, that very primal hunger is important to explore through various aspects of my experiences, my dealings with people, food being a perfect ambassador food being the communicator, a shared thali, or shared anything, a sandwich with someone, opens up conversations. You get insights into the way people think, what they feel about food, whether they're indifferent to it, whether they're making eye contact with you when you're eating, very important. And often on long flights, when the person next to me gets his meal, her meal, I wait and see how they'll proceed. And in that sense, I'm a complete and total and shameless voyeur. I've spent my entire life watching people, and if anything, I'm insatiable. It's about people watching. So this book started off as something that was deeply felt, but also very spontaneous. I had written books to mark my 50th year, my 60th year, my 70th year. I was turning 75, and I definitely felt the need to mark that, because after 75, you literally count the months, and you've led a life you enjoyed. You've eaten great meals, met wonderful people. How did I want to remember my 75th? And the best way to do it was to write a memoir which had food as a central motif, but was not about food. It was more about people and emotions. And I thought I would do it as a run-up to my 75th, starting with my 74th, and build up to the birthday of the 75th, and which is exactly what happened. And I was glad that my publishers didn't resist too much. And in fact, when I sent them the first few chapters, they were immensely pleased, because there was a certain spontaneity and a certain vulnerability and a certain honesty which came through, because it was very cathartic. It was written almost like stream of consciousness. I was writing it as the months came along. So the book is divided into 12 months. So I thought about it later, and I said 12 months, 365 days, 75 years, and approximately 400 pages to pack it all in. That was the challenge, but that was also the fun.
The title, My Hunger for Life, would it have been possible for you to say that you were insatiable and that you had a hunger for life, say, at the age of 30, or is it something that comes with...
I was born hungry. So I don't think that's new to me. It's just that when you look back, you start to identify the various hungers. And the idea of hunger itself is a much wider, much bigger, much broader thought. Because you can be hungry on so many different fronts. You could be hungry for love, for attention, for success, for recognition, for money, for just so many peaks. If you want to climb those all your life, you can remain in that perpetual state of hunger, which is never really satiated. So the idea of being satiated, I find, is a little deadening. And I don't think any human being at any stage can say, I know everything, I've experienced everything, I am so complete. It's not possible.
So tell us your bucket list. Like 2 or 3 items.
Okay, so one of the quite a few of the bucket list things are being ticked off, surely, but definitely. One of them was to dance with a ponytailed stranger in a square in Argentina. Specifically dance the tango, which I find is one of the most...
With banderas.
With banderas, of course, but that wasn't possible. We tried, but we did go to Argentina at this age. I just said, listen, I just got to do it. And my husband was good enough to say, let's do it. And we did find a ponytail stranger in a square in Buenos Aires, and I did dance the tango. It takes two, as you know. And it was a very, very thrilling moment. So similarly, I mean, I always wanted to see the lights, the fabulous, the northern lights in Iceland. So that's ticked off. I wanted to see the cherry blossoms in all their glory in Japan and go to Kyoto and maybe hang with the geishas. That's not possible, but you do see them. And if you go during cherry blossom time, they are so beautifully dressed in their kimonos. And I mean, it's like seeing these beautiful, graceful butterflies floating through the streets of old Kyoto. Oh my God. So actually, I've identified what this primal hunger in me is. It's for beauty. It's for unfiltered, unadulterated beauty. It could be a sunset. It could be like a rainbow in the sky thrills me like I can't tell you how much. It's just a symbol of hope. And I was in Gulmarg just 3 days ago, and I saw this rainbow, and I phoned up like-minded friends who also love rainbows, and we shared a beautiful moment. So beauty, I see a beautiful painting, a beautiful woman. I listen to a piece of music that's astonishing. I like being astonished. I think we all do, except that we don't know it at that moment. But when you look back, the moments that you will recall will always be beautiful. Emotionally beautiful, aesthetically beautiful. A scene in a movie, something that's striking about someone. Like right now, I'm a fangirl crushing desperately on Shobhita in Made in Heaven. She is so unique. And after many years, I've seen someone perform in a way that is, she's like a female panther, and so absolutely stunning. I'm captivated.
Much like this. Oh, that was a female panther as well.
No. Yeah. Look at her lines. Look at the way she moves. Look at the attitude. Look at the arrogance. Oh my God, she's something else.
All of which you could say about. So would you like to talk a little about the process of writing and how it has changed over the years for you?
Significantly enough, not. I was always consumed, even as a very young person. And I was always writing, even when I was not writing, if you know what I mean. I write even when I'm asleep. So that process never ends. And I like it because it keeps me extremely restless. And I like restlessness. I feel extremely lost if there's no chaos around me, or if my mind is still, which is why I cannot meditate, because when I'm writing, I think I am meditating. So the writing process, since the time when I was a young person, editing took a lot of my time in the early 20s, because I was founder editor of 3 very popular fanzines, magazines, about our society, about a changing India, about films. And that did cut into my writing time. And I was more interested in putting the magazine together and in getting other people to write. It gives me, to this day, enormous joy and a sense of excitement, a thrill, when I see good writing. Someone else's writing comes to me, and I sort of dance a jig, and I say, oh, wow, what a voice. I mean, it's original, it's authentic, it's got spunk. This person, I mean, I hope nothing changes the rhythm of that sense of expression. So writing per se excites me. Reading per se excites me. Meeting people excites me. Food excites me. Movies excite. Music excites. So it's all part of a whole. Because without these stimuli, there would be no writing. So if I travel, as I do, and I'm traveling nonstop, and I love that, and it's getting harder as you grow older to negotiate terrain which is not always friendly, it is to do with exactly that. I see something new, and at that moment, it's not that I instantly sit down and capture it in a diary, not at all, but it stays. Conversations stay. Voices stay. A certain quirk, something I notice about an individual which makes that person unique, stays, and it stays pretty much permanently. But I do write. There are no shortcuts, Jerry, as you know. In writing, it is a discipline. It's like any other professional commitment. I have been a professional writer in the public domain for over 55 years. I've never skipped a deadline. I stick to my deadlines, and I enjoy what I do. So I haven't turned blasé, I haven't turned cynical, I don't do it as a job. It's not just a vocation. It is all of me. It is a passion. And I really hope that I never ever tire of the written word. I never tire of life. Like they say, jab tak hai jaan, I want to keep writing.
But I'd also like to suggest one thing. I think there is a very private Shobhaa Day that doesn't show up in most of your writing, in the sense that there are lots of words that are about other people and about other things. But there seems to be like this screen of words, and I think you share this with Shah Rukh Khan, a screen of words that protects an inner self. This is the first book in which there are traces of that private Shobhaa Day which are showing up. You know, there's a moment when you talk, I think, about walking in Thailand and saying, this is not something I can do anymore. Yeah. You know, I'd like you to just explore the vulnerability of this Shobhaa Day in Insatiable.
I think being vulnerable is an attractive quality, but most women in particular are afraid to confront it because it somehow, they assume it weakens them, and most times it definitely does. A younger Shobhaa Day would have assumed a tough exterior, and I have, which is almost like a self-protective layer, because you don't want anything invasive to hurt you. But now at 75, vulnerability is something I embrace and I want to share, because I want other people to also feel it's okay, it's all right to say I can do this much, I cannot do something much more than what I am doing right at this point. And I'm lucky to be doing even this, because a lot of other women, a lot of other men may not be as fortunate. And I feel this book was much more revelatory in that sense. It was deliberately so, but I think to go back to Hussain Saab, one day of many years ago, he walked into the house waving a canvas. And I was excited. I said, what is this, Hussain Saab? Aap kya dikhane aaye hain? And he opened it, and he had done a portrait of mine. Yeah, and I think I'm very lucky, very blessed, because I think he's only done about 3 or 4 portraits of anybody. So I looked at it, and I didn't jump for joy, because I said, this is me? He said, it will be. I said, uska matlab? I said, this looks like Indira Gandhi. So he said, you will be that. With such surety. And it really hurt my vanity, because I was nowhere close to that age or stage. I said, Hussain Saab, is that how you see me? He said, you wait, aap aise hi dikhengi. So I said, okay. Aur ye kya hai mere samne, ye colors, screens, what are these? So he said, aapko pata nahi? These are all the filters. You don't want to show yourself to the world. You want to see the world. Exactly what you said. So these are the screens you hold up. And this is how I see you. And this is how I've portrayed you. And you will mellow. He said, you might not like that word now, but it's going to happen. So the shades of the screen in front of my face go from very, very pale gold to a much darker and darker, till it's almost a shade of gray. And that was his prediction for me, and perhaps he was so right, because I do find myself a radically different person than I was definitely in my 20s and 30s. But the fire is still there, and I can still give anyone a damn good fight when asked for. But other than that, it's a version of myself that I'm just very comfortable with and feel no need at all to explain or be apologetic or defensive about.
So I like to think of these 2 pictures that are in this book. There's this one on the cover, which is also a nicely consuming, like she's drinking. But you look at that gaze, and that gaze is come and get it if you dare. Like just try it on me. And the picture inside, which is a much more, sort of like much more celebratory of life kind of picture. Like, come and try it. I'll kick you, but I'll kick you and we'll have fun. It's an interesting
Well,
sort of
that
picture.
portrait was picked by the publishers, the one at the back, and I was being playful because I was modeling for my daughter.
Oh, I see.
For her curated jewelry.
Oh.
And I'm a completely, totally different human being with my children. So when she was behind the shoot and was directing me, at that moment I was teasing her, and it's captured that very well. This picture is quite an iconic picture, even if I say so myself. I did the Taj tea ads for many years, the Taj and all of that. And the graphics are the idea of the publishers, and we were concerned because they picked this picture from whatever they could find. I didn't really want to do a special shoot and things. I could do it, 10 years, 20 years ago. Now it's just tiring and boring to have to do it. And I said, just pick whatever you want from the internet, and I'm okay with it. This picture has a nice story to it, actually, because, like you said, it's the gaze. I think they liked the gaze. And the representation of a certain sense of exuberance with the flowers and the lotuses, and I loved it. We went through several versions of this, and then there was a question of copyright because it did belong. It was not our property to use as we wished, but it was so long ago that the copyright had been exhausted and the legal team cleared it. So I'm glad that they did, because we could use a picture which I personally think is very apt for what the book is saying.
I think there are two directions that were indicated. So I'm just going to do both directions. The first is, I think, where you said you'll be able to give anyone a good fight. And I wanted to say this in the beginning and I forgot, and I'm going to say it now. There's always been a great courage about Ms. Day and about her writing. She has spoken truth to power. And she's done it for all of us in a certain kind of way, so thank you very much for that. She's probably paid the price for it as well in many ways. And in this book, you will find that there are many messages about the boringness of purity, about hybridity. There are celebrations of all kinds of festivals, and a reminder of what kind of India we would all like to have, given if we were sensible about this. So were those messages kind of worked in, or did they just come spontaneously?
These are the truths I live with and believe in. So it was not a construct. It was not that I started writing, say, September, and I said, oh, this is a message I want to deliver for this month. It was something extremely organic, and it's what I live by, what I believe in, what matters most to me. And I know that I'm not alone. I know that there are millions like all of us in this room who believe in exactly the same value systems and feel nostalgic about our past. So the messages, it's not a message book, but if you care to read between the lines, and if you care to find something in it that you connect to, whether it's the symbolism of food in a certain context, eaten with certain people, which today may or may not be kosher for a lot of people. It was like when, let's not delve too much into politics. I mean, the Taj Mahal Hotel is just about getting over Zubin Mehta's comment, which was so innocuous, and I cannot imagine that it has created the kind of furor, because it's something we all should have clapped, applauded, and endorsed. So the book is definitely written in that spirit, but that spirit is something not new to me. I have lived it.
And the other kind of, the other road that was suggested by the last thing we were talking about was family, and food and family, and ghare bhaire, in the sense, the outside, the inside. Would you like to talk about that a little?
Well, it's a family that is food obsessed. So we're all really, I wouldn't call ourselves, I don't call myself a gourmet. I don't call myself a food critic. I won't say, I know there's so much I don't know about food and would love to know more. because food is in itself a universe. It is a philosophy. It gives you insights into cultures. It gives you a sense of history. And it just generates fantasies of so many kind which are so sensual. So a person like Abhijit Banerjee, now he writes about food extraordinarily well. He's very skillful in any which way you look at his work. A Nobel laureate, but not a Nobel laureate for food writing, but that he should be getting a Nobel just for that, for making food so accessible and writing about it with such a depth of knowledge of the ingredients and all of it. But our family, at the family table, we are always discussing the meal that we are about to eat, and then the next meal and where we are going to eat it or how it's going to be cooked. And people often wonder, because they confuse the thought that if I say I'm food obsessed, they immediately say, then how come you're not, they use impolite words to describe a certain term, politically incorrect. So I keep saying that it's not about how much you eat. You don't have to be a glutton. You have to enjoy every morsel and every bit of what you eat, and eat with a sense of responsibility to your own body. So it's difficult to make that distinction for people who think that I'm making up all these stories about all the food I eat. I don't make up anything. If at all, I underplay it, because I really do enjoy every meal, and I look forward to the next and the next and the next.
But if you listed all those dishes that you have eaten in the book, and you listed the calorie content on them, then something is working. Like, I mean, what do you eat? 1 teaspoonful?
Bilkul nahi. No. No, not at all. No, it's not about a teaspoonful. But for example, if it's a handi of biryani, my natural appetite, I have the appetite of a horse. I could eat that handi in one go, in one sitting, but my natural discipline, remember I started my life as a model, so that discipline stays. So it stays. So I would eat, and an athlete and a competitive athlete, so I know nutrition. I know what my body can take comfortably and enjoy. So I would enjoy that biryani, maybe 5 spoons, big, large spoons of it, but not the entire handi.
I only take the meat. I don't take the rice. Just solve the problem.
Selfish.
It's a big handi. There be other pieces for other people. And they can eat potatoes. So this is the other thing I think that runs through the book is the Maharashtrian and the Bengali cuisines, side by side. The food of the past and the food of the present. Would you like to talk about that interaction?
Because it's much more about a marriage than about food, and all the conflict areas between the competition, because according to my Bengali husband, there's no such thing as Maharashtrian cuisine. It doesn't exist. There's nothing called vegetarian, because the vegetarian is a snack. You can't call it a meal, etc. So we have these ongoing conversations which are non-stop. Plus, like all Bengalis, they're fanatical about everything, right? So why should food be spared? Certainly not. So, and they're fanatical about how it's served, how the vegetables are cut, how it's consumed, in which sequence exactly, and which time of the year is right to eat what, and all of it. So there are theories about food, but there's also food taken to another level of obsession, which I don't identify with, but we continue to spar, which is great, because I've said that, my Maharashtrian superiority doesn't permit me to stoop to the level of explaining the sophistication of my cuisine to you.
That's lovely. Towards the end of the book, I think you talk about Christmas, and you say that poor Sahil, I think, has been treated very badly with vegetarian options being very limited around Christmas. Are you planning a better Christmas for poor Sahil this year?
Yeah, the Sahil is our Jain son-in-law. Till my daughter married him, I hadn't really thought about Jain cuisine. I had not had to think about it. So having now to think about a son-in-law coming to our home and getting very little to eat, I really feel bad because my imagination does not, it's limited. So I tell my daughter that why don't you kind of pre-order his food from where, I don't know how to make Jain food. I've never had to. But I still feel really terrible about it because I feel guilty that you can't keep giving, avocado mousse. How many Christmases is Sahil going to come and eat avocado mousse and crackers? It's really very unfair.
In the process of writing this book, often there are discoveries that one makes, I have found. One thinks one is writing X, but one finds one is writing A and B and C. Were there any such discoveries that you made along the way that you'd like to talk about?
But you're so right when you say, you start off the book saying, I'm going to write X, and it turns out to be something completely different from what you had envisaged or even what your publishers were told you were going to be writing. Which is fine because they do have enough faith in me to go ahead with whatever it is. Of course, it has to meet their standards. And the marketing team has to clear it off, as you know. These days, it's all about the marketing team giving a yay or a nay to, it doesn't matter who it is, the algorithms have to say, yes, we are going ahead with this. It's their money, so I'm not going to quibble. But a lot of my earlier work started off very differently. And then it's like a river changing course. And then it sort of meanders into, there are little rivulets which go here and there. And eventually the Ganga comes together and it meets the sea. And the whole process of writing is exactly that. And it's like saying that when you dip your feet into the river, neither the river remains the same, nor do you. In that one instant, you change and the river has moved on. So writing is something like that. You write, for me, it's at really a torrential pace. I'm not someone who plods. I'm not someone who plots. I'm not someone who rewrites 100 times. It either comes out satisfactorily or it's junked. I cannot go back to it because my mind is already on something else. The next chapter or the next book or the next something. So it's also thrilling for me. It was a first this year when I'd written lockdown liaisons during the 2 years that the whole world was flattened by this awful thing, which has a name which I'd rather not mention and spoil the evening. And it was a cathartic thing for me to be able to write in the first person, assuming a lot of different voices, a lot of different characters, as to what the lockdown meant to all of us in emotional terms. And that Lilette Dubé thought it a good enough idea to produce a series which features 5 of those stories and perform them across India. It was a first for me to hear what I've written being enacted by actors on a stage. It's a very different kind of thrill. I mean, I've written extensively for television, but that's very different. Being a scriptwriter is very, very different. And I've enjoyed that a lot. But at the end of the day, everything comes down to communication, no matter which medium chooses you. Writing has chosen me, but all of us are communicators on some level or the other, maybe through music, dance, painting, conversations. So I feel that at 75, that writing has been a very precious gift, and I'm filled with gratitude for that gift.
The one last question, I think. You have a cast of characters that includes the family, largely. Did the family ever say, like, can you keep us out of this?
Would I listen?
On which happy note, thank you so much, Shobhaa De. Once again, ladies and gentlemen. Please demonstrate your insatiable desire to read by buying the book.